All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Eluña Noelle here with me on the show. Eluña is an Akashic Records channeler, healer, and intuitive who channels regular energy updates monthly and is also committed to helping people to uncover helpful insights from their past lives as well as connect with their angels and guides. And very excited to have you here. Welcome to the show, Eluña.
Thank you so much. It is really a pleasure to be here, Brandon. I appreciate
Yeah,
you
we
calling me in.
we talked a few minutes before turning the mics on, and I'm excited. I can tell this is going to be a fun one, and I want to start with my cliche opening question, which is this: you're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Life. Life is my passion. Creating life and sustaining life and helping others tune into the power of life.
Yeah, that's a good passion. Well,
I guess that's a pitch rather than a 10-floor response, but that's what I would say.
It's good. It's good. So let's talk about your life and what it's looked like. If you would, set the stage for us and give those who aren't familiar with you or your work, just whatever backstory, whatever feels relevant to share as to how you got to do the unique work that you do in the world.
Yeah. So I actually was raised in a fairly abusive household. And because of that really sparked me to be in touch with my guides and my higher self at a very, very young age. So I still have conscious memories of when I was an infant and learning how to walk. I have a twin brother, so I have a lot of memories of seeing him. And he actually learned to walk before me, and it inspired me to try really hard. Yeah. And
my mom had a twin brother as well.
Oh, wow, that's sweet.
No longer here, but yes.
Nice connection. Yeah. And so the household that I grew up in was very challenging. I was blessed to go to a Montessori school in which I was just allowed to freely explore. And so I had this very sharp contrast of being very tightly controlled and in an unsafe space at home. But then when I would go to school, I was completely safe and like trusted and allowed to flourish.
Wow.
That really gave me a lot of understanding as to kind of the nature of the world. The world is full of contrasts and polarities like that, light and dark, control and then freedom in certain spaces. When I was 14, that's really when everything kind of came to a head because of, the body changes and everything else. I really went through a very dark time. And the story about that is that I was very rebellious as a teenager. After all that control, believe it or not, after all that control, I needed to just express and come out. And so I took my mother's business truck to the beach, and the beach that I went to crossed state borders. And so that's technically considered a felony, which of course at 14, I didn't know that. So when that was discovered, I was promptly kept inside of my room for about a month and a half. I was not allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to go to school, and no one in my family spoke to me. My twin brother was directed to bring me up a tray of food 2 times a day and just leave it outside of my room.
Wow.
It was intense is like one word, but it was deeply traumatizing to be completely cut off. Yeah. I mean, it was solitary confinement. I didn't have anything in my room. I had maybe 5 books that I had already read, and that was it. I mean, this was before really everybody had computers and cell phones and everything. So I didn't have any of that stuff, and my mother would have taken it anyway. But what that gave me was time to reflect. I had only time to really consider my life, what I was doing here on this planet, because I had known forever that I came here for a reason. There was intention and purpose behind my being here. But being in that darkness and that space was just, I couldn't see it. And so there came a point when it all kind of came to a head in a very dark way for me. And in that moment of darkness, when I was actually prepared to just leave the earth, my guides came through very strongly. And it was the first time since I had been a child that they came back on, because they were like pushing as hard as they could to get through, and they did. And they essentially posed the question of, you know that you're here for a reason. So what is it? Why are you here? And that was what really made me pause and consider again, for the first time since I had been a child, right, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So when I thought about it, it was very clear. It was because I was here to learn. I'm here to learn. I had always loved learning. It was my greatest joy. And I decided in that moment that the way that I was going to go forward in my life, and the way that I was going to experience the most joy, was to see every moment and every person as a teacher. I could be in school, as it were, all the time. I didn't have to be in a classroom to feel like I was learning something. I could just be in my life.
Wow.
And that was really the shifting point for me, was going through that. And of course it took years to and still is a process of uncovery, and everything. But that was really the biggest shift for me. And like this direct connection with my guides has really been present since that time.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, how old were you when you had this realization that
I was 14?
You know, that's so much deep wisdom for a 14-year-old to understand that, everyone is my teacher essentially, and I'm the student. To come to that realization, that perspective, it's not something I considered till, way beyond that, late 20s, 30, and so that's just, that's incredibly insightful for such a young person. And like you said, it's one thing to understand it sort of theoretically, and it's another to apply it and really, it's like I always quote Mike Tyson. He says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, and so life punches you in the face and you forget that, oh, hold on, I'm supposed to be learning from this. And
right.
But wow. And so for your guides, what were the main, they started really young for you coming through, and then it sounds like there was a quiet period, and then back online as things got more intense. What was their main mode of communication, with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually, so it was both visual and auditory.
Wow.
In a quick summary, I had gone through a lot of lessons when I was a small child, between the ages of 4 and 12, basically. Every single night when before I would go to sleep, I was always so excited to go to bed, because they would come through and they took me through series of what I would call curriculum, essentially soul curriculum, to remember certain things and to practice certain skills. The skill that I practiced, the two skills that I practiced the most was memory enhancement. So they would have me review every single piece of my day from the moment that I had opened my eyes, every single detail, recalling all of it until I had put myself into bed. That was how it started when I was around 4, and that lasted for about four years. And then they started to transition me into being in the void, in the nothing, and interacting with that. And that was a huge progression that lasted the majority of my childhood, and everything built on that. So they brought in more and more. So that was the big visual component that happened at nighttime. But when they spoke to me, and still to this day, it is all auditory. So I hear them here around the left side of my head. Now I have actually many beings that speak to me, so they're kind of all over the place depending on who it is. But yeah, it's visual and auditory.
Wow. At that time, as a young person, you're obviously, be taken through this curriculum sort of thing. Did you also have remembrance and awareness of, the ultimate nature of reality and spirituality, and the idea that you're oh yeah, I'm not 14 years old. I'm incarnated in the physical dimension 14 years ago. And, recalling, who and what you are beyond this avatar that you are currently living in.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I did. Yes, I remembered my past lives when I was a child. The main one that I remembered was the one just before this incarnation. And I think it was really strong for me for, I guess, a couple reasons, but also because my father in this lifetime had been with me in that lifetime, and so it was very easy to remember him. And I did try to tell him one time, and that was like, he was like, "What are you talking about?" It was
So they
totally
were
over his
not.
head.
That was my next question. Do they have any spiritual inklings or connection at all to your parents? But no.
Yeah, it's a good question. So my father did not, and I actually didn't grow up with him. He was on the East Coast while I was growing up in Washington State. So I rarely saw him, and he really didn't have a spiritual connection. My or conscious anyway. My
Yeah.
mother is very full of contrasts. And she was the primary abuser in my household, and so
Mm.
it was she was very polarizing, and there would be pieces of this deep wisdom of, there is a universal energy that we all are surrounded by, but then she would also say other things that were like full of darkness. So there was for her some amount of awareness, but it
Yeah.
wasn't embodied enough, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It was too
Gotcha.
surrounded in darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. Wow. Well, yeah, I'd love to hear from you a little bit about, like, okay, so now you're out of the parents' world. You've stepped into your adulthood, and you're bringing through. As I said when we first spoke, when I first came across your work, and you do these monthly energy updates, channelings, and it reminds me a little bit of like a female version of my dear friend Lee Harris, and who and so uh, yeah, I'm curious. Has that been something? Because I just came across your work relatively recently. Is that something that's been happening for a long time? Sort of these yeah, when did it go into like actual channeling and that sort of thing for you?
Yeah, great question. I began doing private readings for the Akashic records and
Hmm.
channeling for people individually about 2 or 3 years ago now. I time is weird, so I
Yeah.
somewhere in that genre. Um, and my guides had been pushing me for a little while, just nudging me, I should say,
Hmm.
about bringing myself into a more public realm, because I didn't even promote or market myself. It just spread word of mouth, and I ended
Yeah.
up being like fully booked pretty frequently,
Cool.
while I was still being a teacher. Actually, I was a Montessori teacher,
Mm.
and it was the start of this year, at the beginning of 2024, that it was January 2nd, and I had a huge letting go. Actually, on for the first time in my life, New Year's actually meant something. I was like, oh wow, I can feel that I have completely like left behind a lot and moved on to a different timeline. I actually felt it on New Year's, which was interesting just to
Wow.
experience that. And so it was January 2nd. This one night, it became very clear, and it was like, I'm okay, this week I'm going to record and release my first
Oh
publicly
wow.
channeled video that is for a large group of people. And it was about the energies basically of the first 3 months, and that was
Wow.
very easy to tune into just because my of who my guides are.
Hmm.
And then I released it that week, and it's been a journey since then.
Wow. So that is pretty recent that you've stepped
Hmm.
in front of the camera, let's say, in that way. Very cool. Wow. Well, congratulations on stepping into your new timeline. And,
Thank
and
you.
obviously, it's been a new timeline, right? I mean, this year has been probably very different for you. Uh,
Yes, yes, it had very, very, and beautiful, and magical, and
yeah.
wondrous.
Wow. You know, you had mentioned when we were talking previous to recording that you went to Egypt recently, and that was like a
Hmm.
really powerful experience for you. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. Oh my gosh, everything about that, the leading up to it, the entire experience was beyond magical. I meditate every morning, and this one morning I had with my partner. Actually, we both meditate together,
Mm-hmm.
and this one morning we both came out of meditation at the same time, like usual.
Uh-huh.
And he was sharing with me that he had had a vision come through about standing in front of the Great Pyramids with like holding my hand. And
Oh, wow.
I said, wow, that's so crazy because I had a vision of being in Egypt too. That's so amazing that you also experienced that.
Wow.
A a series of synchronicities in my vision. There was a woman named Marlena Seven Bremner who writes she writes books on alchemy, but really she's an artist as well, a beautiful alchemical artist, stunning
Mm-hmm.
stunning work. And she had been in my vision, and I really didn't know that much about her, but so I was trying to ask my partner. I said, you know, that woman who makes alchemical art, what is her name again? And he reminded me. In the moment that he is telling me what her name is, Marlena Seven Bremner, she shows up online, and there is a post from her about this trip to Egypt that someone
Mm.
that she knows is leading. And so she's just saying, hey, if you want to go on this trip, you can use this code to get whatever off. Um, and he and I both were shocked because that is a obviously synchronistic experience to have her in my vision and then see her show up talking about Egypt.
Yeah.
So we looked into it. We went, and a whole group of people were with us. It was beautiful. And while I was there, wow, I have not experienced activations and just the movement of energy and the connection with beings like like I have there. That place is wow. I it's
Wow.
actually quite unbelievable. And we were invited to participate in this private activation of the Great Pyramid and actually the other two pyramids that are on the Giza Plateau as well. The first day we were there, we stumbled upon this group, and they were doing an activation, and it was for the conjunction of these two planets that were happening on that day in April. And we got to experience the most incredible activation at the Great Pyramid, which kind of started the entire experience that ended up unfolding there. And that was before we had even met up with the actual group that we were going with. And the final kind of culmination that brought everything full circle was this experience that I had at the Isis temple. So the Isis temple is farther south in Egypt, in
Mm-hmm.
Aswan is where it's called. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a Philae complex is this larger center where the original Isis temple was taken to. So it's actually quite common in Egypt for sacred sites to be relocated. It's kind of
Mm.
odd, but they
Hmm.
they take the whole foundation and just transport it to a new place because of the changing river. And so the original and ancient site of the Isis temple is also there, but you have to go on a boat to get there, and it's just farther away, and you have to know where it is because it's not like a site anymore. There's no one there.
Yeah.
There are some ruins.
Yeah.
I was invited by a beautiful, beautiful, sacred-hearted man who is a spiritual leader essentially in Egypt, and he brings spiritual groups together. He privately invited me away from the rest of the group to go to the ancient site. He said, "I just have a feeling that you need to go there."
Wow.
And I immediately felt, yes, I do. I didn't even know that it existed, but I said, yes, you're right. I do need to go there. So
Mm-hmm.
we went there at sunset, and the activation that I experienced, and yeah, it was really like, gosh, even just remembering it was such an honor. Upon arriving, I Isis immediately came through, and she started to speak to me just internally, and
Mm-hmm.
basically guided me through a series of activations, and then offered me a mission was the word that she used. And she said, I this temple space that you are in needs to be reactivated at the new site of where my temple now is located. In essence, this is what she was saying.
Wow.
I'm way paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
so she taught me how to take the energy of that space, and I had to
Mm.
actually take it inside of me, take it into my being,
Wow.
and hold it until the group was then later that night at like 10 o'clock at night going to go to the ancient site. So she led me through a series of lessons of how to hold the energy. She said, you're going to need a physical anchor to then tie the energetic anchor to, essentially, when you go to the new site of her temple. She said that it's this like spiral shell, and that's the same thing that the energy looked like, was doing a spiral shell of energy into the four corners of the temple. And she said, you're going to need a physical anchor. It will look like the energetic anchor, like a spiral shell. And I said, okay. When I came out of that initial lesson, sitting right on the skirt of my dress was a white spiral shell about this big.
Wow.
I have never had an experience where I'm off in the etheric and then there is a physical manifestation right before me. So that already was like said a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, was this a place you would typically find shells as well? Like,
I don't even know, because I hadn't seen any there. I only found 3 others. She said, you're going to find them right here. The path that I was led was this spiral that led me back to where I was. And I only found 3 more shells. I did not see any others there. And they all looked basically exactly the same, all the same small white shell. Wow. Yeah. So she also told me that the energy of what I was doing was to restore the heart of Isis at this new site where her temple was. And she had also said this was something that has been done many times. There have been many activations at her site, and it will happen again. It just turned out that I was kind of an appropriate person to come do this again.
You're supposed to contribute to the bigger mission that many people are probably, cool.
That's exactly it. Yes. And so I when we did go back to the ancient site, I wasn't, at the time when we were on our way there, I wasn't sure how I would be restoring her heart, because she said it was going to be, I was going to know essentially when I would have the item, the physical anchor to do that. The man that had taken me to the ancient site, without saying anything, he just held out his hand and placed something in my hand and then closed my fingers around it and kind of walked away. And when I opened my hand, he had placed a small rose quartz heart in my hand. And I was like, this is the anchor that I needed. Wow. I have no idea. He just was listening. He didn't even know what that was for.
Yeah.
And so then when I did go to the ancient site, the entire experience there was a lot of moving energy and, of course, like grounding everything, listening very deeply. I had to clear quite a few things. That was, again, the most energetic work I have ever done, and the most physical and energetic, because I had to move so much. It was a lot. And at the end, it was successful. I was able to, in the perfect amount of time, because it was a private visit, I finished the energy. And right when I knew, okay, it's complete, the call to go back onto the boat so that we could go back was called. So
wow. What a trip. What an amazing, unexpected part of your adventure. Was that the first time you'd ever connected with the energy of Isis? And
it was, yeah. At least consciously, yes, it was.
Yeah. Do you have any recollection of, obviously, you do a lot of Akashic records investigation. Do you have any memory or connection to Egypt that you can recall for yourself?
Yes, actually I do. And I refer to the time that is pre-dynastic Egypt as Kem. That's what a lot of people know it as now, Kem or Kemet. And I was alive during that time. I was actually working there's a very specific lifetime that was right on the cusp of Kem moving into Egypt, where a lot of transition was happening at that time. And I was working to basically maintain the practices, the energy practices, but also I'll say spiritual practices, but really it's all energy. The energy practices of how to connect with yourself, how to connect with your soul. I was working to keep those sacred, to protect them, and to still be able to teach the young people how to do all of this work, because it was slowly but surely being funneled out of consciousness and away from people's understanding. Um, and I was not successful actually in that lifetime, and it was it was very disappointing. But I have a very strong emotional connection as well, just because that was a time when I could not overcome my human ego. So that is something that I am working on in this lifetime, is to just show up fully and not necessarily have an expectation as to what the result might be, because I'm just here to listen to the divine, and that was something I missed in that lifetime, so I won't miss it this time.
Right. Feeling like the aim of your result needs to manifest, and if it doesn't, then there's somehow a loss or failure. When really it's such a big. I always say, we're playing checkers. Our human is playing checkers, and our higher self is playing chess. So we can have the vision of what we think should be, the outcome of our actions and intentions. However, bringing a healthy sense of detachment to that, because you're seeing from like this much of a grand, puzzle, if you will. And so I think that's an important lesson for all of us. I'm glad to hear that you're getting that in this life.
Yeah, thank you. That's a beautiful analogy too, because it really says your higher self is, if you're a good chess player, then you're thinking 5 moves ahead at least. So your higher self is thinking 5 moves ahead, and that's the work, is to like be in tune, to be fully present with whatever space you're on right now, but knowing where you're going. That's a really beautiful analogy.
I'm glad you appreciate it. Yeah. And one of the things we also talked about before recording is your openness to sampling some level of reading or channeling on this episode, and for me, and collective, whatever wants to come through, however you want to approach that. To me, that is always an exciting idea, and like I said, it never hurts my feelings if I get some insight from such a clear channel as yourself from beyond the veil. So yeah, I don't know if now feels like a good time to maybe explore some of that.
That sounds beautiful. Absolutely. Great. I'll just take a minute, and I'm going to call in your guides. And is your birth name Brandon Beecham?
Yep. Brandon Brent Beecham.
Brandon Brent Beecham. You got the 3 B's.
I definitely am here to figure out how to BBB more. As opposed to do.
I love it. It'll just take a moment. I call in my angels and guides, my higher self, and the ascended masters who guide me to please be present for this reading. Thank you. I call in Archangel Michael to please surround us both. Please keep my channel open, clear, and protected. Thank you. Call in Divine Source, the angels, to please surround the spaces we are in, permeate all objects that are in these spaces. I call in the most loving angels, guides, masters, and higher self of Brandon Brent Beecham to please be present for this reading. Thank you for being here. I call in the Akashic guides to please be present. Please help me to know Brandon Brent Beecham in the light of the Akashic records. May I please access the Akashic records of Brandon Brent Beecham. Thank you. The records are now open. What is in Brandon's highest good to know at this time, whether it be a past life or present life? Okay, past, go ahead. All right, they want to talk about where you originated, actually. Vega. Interesting. We come from the same place. Okay, what do you want to show us there? Okay, so Vega is a dual star system. I'll say it is located near a star system that has at this point been ultimately destroyed. It's a planet called Lyra. And I say I say star system, and I mean planet. Sorry. So Vega is a planet, and Lyra is a planet, and they are a dual star system together. So Lyra is a much smaller planet, and Vega is its neighbor, closest neighbor. The Vega people are deeply, again, we would use the word spiritual. They are deeply in tune with energy, with their own spiritual growth and development. And it is actually they who have influenced in our human world the Vedic texts, the beings that are blue. That is a call to the Vegan people. They also have blue skin, bluish and ranging into purple. So all of the gods and goddesses in the Vedic and Hindu pantheon in India actually originate from Vega. That is where the principles, the practices, the teachings come from. Ayurveda itself is a Vega principle, as well as Vedic astrology. So that is where you come from, Brandon. And I can
Hmm.
see in this lifetime, this is just your soul's first incarnation when you came from Source. Um, and you are a woman in this lifetime. And you actually have quite dark skin, quite dark blue skin. Um, and you're very tall, beautiful. The vegan people are beautiful to me. And let's see, like they're actually starting you off somewhat younger. The vegan people lived for us a very long time, but I can see you're not that old yet. You're not a child, but you're not actually that old. And there is this energy of almost like frustration or like persistent determination that kind of has that edge to it where you're willing to do whatever it takes to get to the next level of understanding. um and that is really what your focus in that lifetime was. You coming in, you were so surrounded and inundated by wisdom, by ancient knowledge and understanding of the universe, as well as other star systems and kind of the way that they operated. You wanted to understand the deeper meaning of how it was all connected. And
Hmm.
I can just see this energy of like, it has this edge to it, but it is persistent determination of this like very strong will to understand something. And that actually, it's interesting because I guess it's really a youthful energy because it kind of worked against you. It was like gripping sand or water. The
Hmm.
tighter that you gripped, the more that it fell away from you, but you weren't sure how to find that balance of what does it mean to put your whole heart forward and to move towards something with all of you, but yet also let it breathe, let it
Hmm.
be what it's going to be. um so that was this lesson, that was very, it challenged you actually for your whole life, and you really devoted yourself to wanting to understand deeper and deeper what the purpose was, what the connection was to everything, because you knew that there were connections, but you could not quite place your finger on it. Okay, interesting. I was wondering why they were bringing this through. Your guides are actually saying that this is the reason why they wanted to show this is because there is some parallel to you where you currently are right now.
Makes
This
sense.
connection, okay. This strong desire to like take a stand or make something happen. um yeah, make a name, they're saying, but not reaching deep enough to bring out the true beauty of wisdom that is lying dormant within you, is what they are saying.
Hmm.
Hmm. They are saying that it is far deeper than where you have sought thus far. They are using the analogy of, it is like you have been pounding or digging a stake into the ground, knowing that there is water beneath, and you can even smell the water. You can tell that the earth is damper at the level that you have gotten to, but you have not yet tapped into that deep well that is there. And it is the same struggle that you faced in this original lifetime in Vega. And that's actually where you are right now, is you are on the cusp of tapping the deepest in that you have gone to finally see the beginning swellings of water emerge from where you have tapped into. And they are saying that while it does take determination and a sense of persistence, there must be a level of a release of control, and they're saying no expectation. And what was the last piece that you just said? Interesting. They said a desire to know truth simply as truth, rather than to know truth as the way that you wish to see it as. That is where you are right now. And they are saying that you have been seeking answers in some capacity, and this is what will bring you over the cusp. It's like what will turn the light on for you finally. And they are actually inviting me to open it up to questions for you if you would like.
Yeah, all of that really, really resonates. And yeah, feeling such a strong call to, be a voice and of change and implementing things that will bring about lots of change in this world. As we talked about at the beginning, being such a doer my whole life, and really now trying to focus on how I am focusing on stepping into releasing all the expectation and need, and slowing down, and instead of go 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 like I can tend to do, like create more space, maybe more feminine energy, less masculine energy. And so that's something, I mean, even in the last week, for the first time in my life, I've set up an altar, and okay, every morning I'm going to make, I'm going to practice and do journal and all the things I really haven't ever committed to, just creating the space and accessing the quantum field. And I feel this is going to really help to shift and bring me into greater alignment with my purpose. So I'm curious if there's any insight around that.
They did say two specific things. They affirmed when you said bringing in more feminine energy. They said yes, it is about allowing and receiving and leaning back rather than leaning so far forward that your face is so close that your eyes can't be in focus with what you're trying to see. And they also said, what was the other piece? They said that it must be about creating the space for the voice of truth to come through rather than any voice to come through. It must only be the voice of the divine that speaks from within you rather than the voice that comes from the head, they say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there any suggestions that they have, aside from what's already been discussed, to help me to sort of step into the greatest and greatest version of myself?
One of your guides is saying that it is about honing your practice so that you turn your conscious attention back inward. And they are referencing your heart space, and they are saying that it is in this place that all truths lie, and that you will uncover the truest aspect of your own being. But there must be a dropping down from the head into the heart, and the practices must center around this space. And they also are saying, your higher self is now saying, that any practice that leads you into the void where you have detached from your identity, from your life, from yourself, where you are able to stay, that is how the true essence of your being is able to come through. And the more that you practice being there, the stronger the light of your true essence shines until you have fully embodied that aspect of yourself. He is saying that your soul is working to fit itself into you in this, in a way where it is more deeply grounded and where it comes through more strongly. But the practice must be to center into the anchor point of your soul, which is part of it is in your heart. And in order for that to happen, the detachment of the identity that you have created must happen, and that takes place in the void, in the nothing space. That is the next practice, he says, to bring in.
Yeah, I think of I have a meditation from Dr. Joe Dispenza that guides you into that sort of void space. So that comes up for me as a possible good tool to utilize more.
They are affirming they said, yes, that is the one.
Wonderful. I've had a bit of challenge around, being split energetically into, career, what to do. And I'm so creative and so many ideas. And I look back some with like, oh, I wish I'd executed differently on this, that, or the other. And now I'm really in a phase where I'm galvanizing my next step and vision. And so I'm curious if there's any insight around any of that for me that could be helpful.
Yes, this other guide, you have 4 main guides, one of which is your higher self. And this other guide, who is a woman actually, she was with you on Vega, and she is saying that you have a very high capacity of creative power. It is something that is inherent and innate in your being. She says apparently this is a quality of most people from Vega, which is interesting to learn. I didn't know that. And she is saying that capacity paired with your brilliant mind means that you can see many possibilities. Your imagination is endless when it comes to the potential of creation. And it is about, in this world, it is about honing that energy into a space where you are directing what is the energy of that? It is as if you are being the most efficient with the direction of your energy. She is saying that you have so much, it is so concentrated that even when you give what you consider to be a small amount of energy, you can make a lot happen in a very short amount of time because your energy is very concentrated. And so she is saying that to become very clear as to where you are putting your energy, because wherever you put it, it's going to grow and expand. And she's actually comparing it to a bit like a wildfire, where sometimes things can get even like out of hand, like you don't realize how much you've done, and then it gets a little bit out of control, and it can be difficult to rein it back in, or it can feel like it was a waste of energy because all of it burns up rather quickly. And so she is saying that by you becoming more centered in yourself, in your truth, and she's referencing again this emerging essence of your soul coming through more strongly. When that has taken place, it will be very clear where you put this very potent, concentrated energy, because the other pieces that you think you want to create will seem insignificant. They might seem interesting, but you will know that they are not the place where you are the most needed or the most useful with where you are directing yourself. And she is giving one last word on that, which is that it cannot be about the self that you have created at this time. The self that you are and that you project into the world is not the self that is going to create the path that you are wanting to walk and move on to. That self is limited by its previous experiences. And the only way that you can step fully onto it is by bringing through this core essence of your being and allowing that to be what guides you, which is why leaning back and allowing your energy to be what takes you in that direction as a feminine flow would is what they are recommending.
I'm curious if that's definitely helpful. Thank you. And I'm curious if the sort of vision and, let's say, action plan that I currently have is in alignment with my highest, purpose, or if there will be, new revelations or shifts
Hmm.
in that.
They said that not in its current phase. There will
Mm,
be new shifts and revelations, and it will become clear, and it will be like the sun coming out and
mm,
the clouds breaking. It will be, the clarity will be, they are saying, breathtaking
mm,
and undeniable.
mm. I love that. Wow. I did have an experience recently. Um, I've had some experiences recently where my grandfather and grandmother kind of communicated across the veil, and it led to some real impact, let's say, in 3D in my life. It was kind of pointing me in a direction that manifested in very magical, synchronistical way the very next day, and led to my son getting an acting role and things like that. And I'm curious if more of those sorts of things will open up for me. One other thing is I had a connection where it felt like I might have been tapping into a past life or parallel life or a soul that's connected to me as well. So I've had a couple of new experiences, that way. And so I'm just curious if they have any insight on those.
Hmm. Yes, your higher self, and this other female guide from Vega, they are both describing that your this is the time when your energy is the most open to your psychic gifts coming back online, and they are saying this is also a planetary shift. um you are going to be experiencing more of this occurring, and they are saying this is why it is of the utmost importance to be very clear on when ego is what's dominating your experience
Mm-hmm.
versus your heart or your higher self, so that the information that comes through does not leave you in a distorted sense. And they did confirm also that your experience of this past life was, what did you say, tuning in? Yes, they said it is tuning into a parallel life that you experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And the synchronicities are going to continue to lead you to your ultimately your highest truth, to
Mm-hmm.
as a confirmation that you are moving in the direction that is in service to the all, as you truly wish to be, they are saying.
Mm. Yeah, I love that, and yeah, I have a lot of pretty profound synchronicities, and one is, you know, my birthday is really potent portal for me. It's my dad's birthday and grandmother's great grandmother's birthday, and her mother died on that day, and I mean, it's like a 10-minute story to tell all the connection. Ex-girlfriend I met on that day, her boyfriend committed suicide on that day. His name is the same name as the little county in North Carolina all my relatives are from, with the birthday, and it gets on and on. So I'm
Mm.
just curious if there's any insight into, you know, that continuing to just show up over and over again in my life.
Mm. And okay, interesting. They are actually, it's very interesting. I've not seen something like this before. They are they are relating it to a portal in a sense. These layers, it is as if in that on that day, and the energy that surrounds that day in your timeline, it is a way that space and time is like pinched right there.
Mm,
That's the only way I can describe it. And so it is very much like a portal, because things can pass through very rapidly. um, and they're saying that this is it's an an interesting, somewhat challenging life to walk in that way, because that's not normal, that's not a common occurrence for people to be that connected to this pinching or wrinkling in space-time. And what it means is that things can happen instantaneously. They can also come out of that space very chaotically if the way that it is entered is not coherent.
mm,
So they are saying that it is a tremendous gift, because you are able to create and experience instantaneous shifts or manifestation, but that also comes with a very deep responsibility to be in alignment and as coherent as possible prior to entering that space. And then when you come out of it, there's this, I can see that on either end there's kind of like a, maybe like a foreshadowing and an aftershadowing effect, where you kind of enter into the shadow of the portal and then exit out of the portal. So on those two spaces, that's where it is of the most importance to be the most coherent on either
Mm,
side.
mm,
And they also said that this, that's an interesting visual. The energy is that this fold that you experience, it is deeply connected to the human tree, the tree
mm.
of humanity,
Interesting.
which is an energetic tree. But it essentially means that beings who are connected to you have, like, can have a tether to that wrinkle,
Hmm.
and they will or can experience similar things to you, similar phenomena of things happening rapidly, again, in a deeply coherent way or a deeply chaotic way as well.
Mm,
And that's why they are saying it is this responsibility that you have chosen to take on, because it is as if you are a caretaker of
mm,
this portal. And it does affect the human tree and
mm.
collective. So you are living beyond yourself in that sense, that this is something that affects many.
It's
They're
interesting
saying
that
it's a good awareness to have.
it's interesting that you say that, because yesterday, it's the first time I've ever, it's my birthday is 7/28, and I yesterday was the first time I'd ever seen this, someone explain how we descend from source, and he said it basically, we divide into 12 and then 12 again and then 12 again, oversoul, then to 12, 12, and if you 12 times 12 times 12, it's 1728. um and so, which of course has my birthday in there, one, and then 728. So it's interesting. I just seen that for the first time ever yesterday, and I was like, oh, obviously it caught my attention, and with you saying how it's tied to the human template in some way,
Hmm.
um that seems sort of synchronistic.
That is they are. Hmm. What did you say? They are saying that it is a, like a numerological, uh what, like a, not a formula, but it is like a code in a
Hmm.
sense. um and that is why it is connected to that understanding, that it
Mm,
affects many humans. And they're saying it is not just this lifetime that those many 12 tethers that you are referring to are connected. It is through time as well. It is through
mm,
our history into your past, but also going forward. And they are saying
mm,
that's why it is so important to know where you are directing your energy, because of the impact that you have on many beyond you and many before you.
mm. Yeah, I have one other question that comes to mind is, one of the projects that, sort of my, let's say, my most powerful synchronicity or spiritual breadcrumb story, led to me starting a music distribution platform back in like 2009. I followed sort of the breadcrumbs, and someone who, the name that was really synchronistic is someone who claimed to be, his name was Omar, and claimed to be a time traveler, and shared all this insight into this platform that I created. And it kind of grew, and I ended up needing to put it on hold for various reasons. And now I'm feeling very guided to bring it back, using, blockchain technology and creating community around it. It's like a conscious art community. And the name Omar is the this, supposed time traveler's name, and it continued to pop up even a couple days ago in sort of dramatic fashion. So I'm just curious if you have any insight into that, ongoing. We're talking, since 2006, the first time it's popped up, and most recently a couple days ago. And it's a big project to birth and bring back. So there's the part of me like I want to make sure whatever I'm putting my energy into is the right thing, And so I'm just curious if you have any insight into the Omar ongoing winks and this project in general.
Yes. What do you want to say about that? This is the primary goal. Okay. So they are saying that this is a project to restart. They said to treat it like a Zen garden and use be inspired by pieces that you started with, but it is to restart from. It is to start fresh, because they are saying you are new. You are becoming even newer. And this is a project to move into when you are the most aligned and coherent, and to not enter into any work around or even contemplation, they are saying, around this project without being deeply aligned and coherent, because they are saying this is the future. They are saying it is your future. It is where you are going to have all of your gifts come together under one hat, is actually what they're saying. And you will be able to utilize the beautiful, potent, and tremendous amount of energy that you contain and move it in one direction, which will shift the face of music, they say, forever. So this is something to be deeply aligned to.
Wow. Yeah, that was the prediction from Omar, who was supposedly from the year 2063 back in 2006, was that it had this profound ripple of impact. And I launched the first version in 2009, and then, like I said, got sidetracked, and now I'm getting the signs to bring it back. And at the same time, I don't want to misstep and go down the wrong path. I want to be the ultimate instrument of service and peace that I can be, and I just want to be sure that this is indeed the path to traverse. And this, in conjunction with Mystic Society, which I talked to you a little bit about, is kind of two sides of the same coin. The in real life gatherings, the online platform rallied around art and creating community and moving in unison with a DAO, which is like the people own it, is the grand vision of how it all comes together. And as I step onto that path, I just want to be sure I'm not misstepping in any way, if
they
possible,
are saying, they are saying that the society and music project, they are connected, and it is as you see them. They are two sides together creating a whole. And your guides are giving this analogy that you are a bit like a you are a bit like a one of the most delicious, what is that, a berry cobbler that has been baking for a time, and has been baking so much, and there's so much contained that you are overflowing. It is spilling out of the side. And that is where you are feeling a loss of energy and feeling like you are distracted, because you are trailing off onto other pieces that are not the primary focus. And so they are saying part of your work that at this time, and part of the practices that you are moving into, is to hone your fire into the hearth of your heart, to not allow it to be expressed so much that you are not able to contain it, and that you yourself get distracted by the beauty and the fire that is taking place somewhere in the corner, but to stay centered. And that is where you are being led. And that, they are saying, is how you will not misstep in any way.
Wow. The synchronicity there is profound. Guess what the last piece of food I put in my mouth was last night? Berry cobbler.
Berry cobbler.
Wow. And I think back to episode 3. The first guest I ever had on this podcast was an Akashic Records reading. And her advice to me was, you're like you're a person that is meant to be in the center of a boat going down the river. And it's very important you don't get too caught up on all the things that are happening on the sides of the river that you've helped to bring into being in some way. You're supposed to be in the center, flowing down the river, not caught up on the shore, so to speak. And what you just said really reminded me of that. Always stuck with me, and that reminded me of that.
Your guides are affirming that is an accurate representation of your purpose, your higher purpose here.
Hmm. Wow, this has been beautiful. The Barry Cobbler thing is incredible. Is there anything else that you would like to share with me or the audience? As we wind down with this segment.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to share anything for the group? Okay, go ahead. My three primary guides are Pleiadian priestesses that I worked with previously in other lifetimes. They are wanting just to share a message for the collective, I guess. Go ahead. What do you want to say? They are saying that more and more people will be experiencing an awakening of psychic gifts or experiencing what they consider to be psychic or spiritual or synchronistic phenomena. And they are saying that these experiences are not to be ignored or disregarded or pushed aside. They are very much meant to be looked at fully to understand the true nature of reality. For too long, the wool has been pulled over the eyes of humans, and it is far past time that this be removed, but it can only be removed if one is willing to remove it themselves. It is as if all of humanity has been living in a headset of some kind and a virtual headset and needs to pull it off so that they can see the truth of what is around them. They are saying that this is why there has been so much guidance around people connecting with nature and the natural world, because that is real. And nature, the natural world, the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom will speak to you if you are able to listen. And if you are not in a space where you are easily surrounded by nature, then it is even more important to go deep inside and allow your soul to speak to you from that space, the space of nothing, the space of the void. This is how the true essence comes forward. And these experiences, the psychic phenomena, etc., will make far more sense, and things will not feel so confusing or chaotic or scary if you are able to go within and allow your soul to be what is guiding you. The world is taking a turn towards viewing chaos, and it must be that each person is responsible for their own center point. And so practicing this while these new energies come on the planet is the priority, they are saying right now for this time.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. I will just close out. Thank you to your angels and guides and your higher self. Thank you all for coming through. Thank you to the Akashic guides. Thank you for what you shared. Thank you to my own guides, angels, and source. Thank you. The records are now closed. The records are now closed. The records are now closed. My energy stays with me. Your energy stays with you.
Welcome back. Thank you for that. That was amazing.
Thank you for letting me see in. That was beautiful. It was an honor.
Yeah, it was beautiful to receive, and I love the synchronicity of the cobbler thing. Literally, but for Father's Day, that's my favorite dessert. Is my mother made homemade blackberry cobbler. Like,
oh my gosh,
the last thing I had last night. Like, what?
That is amazing.
In the morning here, so I haven't eaten since. Just they knew what to reference, right?
They did, and actually, just to share, they actually don't do this very often, but they told me your birthday. They said 7/28, and I was like, oh, that's a nice birthday. And then you said it, I was like, oh yeah.
Oh wow, before, yeah, it's such a thing for me. Like I said, the story or the recurrence of how it keeps showing up. The villain in my hero's journey tale, now redeemed, friend, his baby mama and grandmother, July 28th, and it's on and on and on. It's just like the story's gotten so long, I don't tell it all anymore. I just snippets, because it's like 10 minutes to share every occurrence of how it showed up in a profound way for me.
I've not ever seen something like that. It's really quite amazing. I'm very curious about that. I wonder, like they said, it's very uncommon, and I just wonder when else that has happened.
Mm-hmm. I had one intuitive one time who said, I'm going to tap into this and tell you more about it. This is years ago on the show. And I'm excited thinking I'm going to hear some profound past life thing or whatever. And then she comes back, she goes, all they showed me was it's just going to keep showing up for you. And I was like a little disappointed. She goes, but I did find this. And she found an article where in England, they surveyed thousands of people to try to determine the most fortuitous day to be born. And
Huh.
which is such a silly notion, right?
Yeah.
And it was almost like the universe laughing at me is what it felt like. And guess what their conclusion was? July 28th.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
How do you even come to that conclusion?
I don't know.
But still, that's crazy.
It was silly. I saw a numerologist talking about it recently, and I guess Elon Musk is a 28th, and
Wow.
Bill Gates is a 28. He says 28 is like this superpower, numerological day. And Apple was created on the July 20 or 28th, and Putin and all these people. So I don't know. It's fun. I think because I'm excited about it. That childlike wonder, it kind of continues to, show up for me in profound ways. So
that's beautiful.
Well, wow, this has been so cool, so fun. I have so enjoyed connecting with you. And Vega is your home planet as well. Wow.
Yeah, that was so beautiful. I was like, oh, we're going to Vega right now. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Is that something that has Vega come up for you a lot with other people? How often is it that you have tapped in and seen other people? Because I'd imagine if it's your home origin in some way, you probably attract a lot of us, right?
Probably attract people from there in readings.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you've seen it. It broke up there a little bit, so I'm not sure if you responded, but
I did not. I was waiting.
Okay.
It has, I actually cannot say accurately even a frequency to be out how often. I have met a few people from there. It's so dependent on what the person needs. Their experience. And I can't even think of a frequency, which is kind of funny of how often that might happen, but it has happened a few times. Yeah. Cool. A lot of people, I have maybe the most common would be Sirius, one of the Sirius stars, either Sirius A or B. That has been very frequent. Yeah.
Cool. Wow. Well, what an amazing gift you have. You're such a clear voice. And that's something that really, for me, with this sort of thing, it's I think, energy doesn't lie, and your energy is so pure and powerful. And I just really appreciate the work that you do, and for taking the time to reflect for me and share in that way is really meaningful. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for all of those reflections. It's my honor. It is my honor to serve in this way. Thank you for letting me see in.
Well, you do it well. So for those who are listening, well, first off, you're kind of off the hook regarding a story of synchronicity or serendipity, positive paranormal story with the Egypt story. But I don't know if there's something else that comes up that you would love to share. It's typically sort of one of the last things I go to. And like I said,
that's beautiful.
If you have something that feels like a fun story to share, please do. And if you feel complete, that's okay too.
Thank you. I guess I'll share because it's very relevant to where we are right now. I had in January and February, I had a handful of visions that came through in meditation, of invitations to podcasts, and yours was one of them.
Oh, wow.
Cool. And then here we are. And I was like, oh, this is the person.
Oh, wow. Were you familiar with the podcast?
I had not all of the podcasts that have reached out to me. I actually had never even listened to, and they're not little. So I'm just not very, I'm tuned in other ways and really tuned out in others.
Yeah. I totally get that too. It's like people are like, what podcast do you listen to? And I'm like, none.
Yeah.
Do you listen to your own? No. So I totally get that and appreciate that. And yeah, it's funny. I don't even remember. You just popped up for me, and I don't listen to a lot of things. I think, I mentioned the Lee Harris thing because Lee is a good friend. I'll occasionally check out his energy updates. And then I think you popped up as oh, this seems similar in some ways. This very, clear,
you cut
feminine
out for a minute.
Voice. And Can you hear me now?
I can. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
you said that you
Yeah.
don't listen to a lot of. Did you say
Yeah, I
channelings?
don't listen to a lot of other things, and I
Mm.
do listen to my good friend Lee Harris's energy updates from time to time. And you popped up, I think, one time as a suggestion, and it just energetically it reminded me so much of Lee. I actually tuned in for a bit, and I'm like, oh, I really like her vibe. I really like her energy, and that's why I reached out. So,
Wow,
um,
thank you. It's
yeah,
so beautiful to hear that. Thank you.
yeah,
Lee Harris does have beautiful energy. It is
yeah.
like so flattering to hear you compare that.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you very
definitely
much.
feels resonant, and similar. Well, this has been such a beautiful experience. I so appreciate you and the work that you do. What is the best way for people to reach out, connect? If you could take a moment and share.
Yeah, thank you. So I do have a YouTube channel. It's Eluña Noelle, and or just Eluña without the tilde. And I also have a website, eluñanoelle.com. I have a membership platform that just recently started, and I do live events with my members. It's really beautiful, and that's also where you're able to book services with me. It's a bit tight right now to get in for services, but
Yeah.
my calendar opens monthly, and you're able to book, and it would be
Mm,
an honor to do an Akashic reading for you. I'm also on Instagram, if you want to
cool.
follow me on there. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So it's a Lunya. I typically ask to make sure I don't butcher a name at first, and I
Oh
forgot to do
yeah.
that with you. But, you know, I think you're
It's all
probably
good.
okay with it. Yeah.
Yes, I feel your heart. Names are just
Exactly.
names.
Just names, just names. Well, I do have one final question for you today,
Great.
and it is my cliche closer. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Eluña and Noelle?
Mm. To live with love.
I love that answer. My favorite quote is, "Love is the answer now." What was the
Yeah.
question?
Oh, beautiful. I love it.
It's a little remix of a John Lennon quote. As I put in my book, this is my remixed version.
I
So,
love it.
yeah.
Mm.
So, yes, this has been beautiful. Love is the answer. And thank you for being so loving and gracious with
Mm.
your time. And thank all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts.
Yes, thank you.
Till next time, journey well.
Journey well.
I love you so, 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 so.